And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Weather for tonight showing this low kind of pulling back to the west and slowly weakening. The front extending eastward here and weakening as well. Wind field a lot lighter now, but still some rain for the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. Nice on the southwest coast, mostly dry in the interior. Still a chance of moisture here over the southeastern part of the state into Cook Inlet. And a warm front keeps it wet over the northern panhandle as this low pulls north-northwestward again, but weaker than the one today, so the winds won't increase that much, and the rain will mainly be over the northern and central southeast coast, and of course along the North Gulf Coast into Prince William Sound. Stays pretty nice here over the interior, increasing chances of snow there from the Yukon Flats, Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast. And a weak low develops here, keeping it breezy and occasionally damp for the Alaska Peninsula. This low drops just north of the central Aleutians there and continues to slowly weaken and keep it wet there, and then it'll take off to the southeast. We'll see on Saturday is off the chart here, and high pressure replacing it in the Bering Sea for light winds, dry conditions there. Chance of showers for the southwest coast. Light winds over all of the interior into the Gulf of Alaska. Light winds for the Panhandle with a chance of rain that'll extend again up into Prince William Sound and Matanuska Valley areas. Coastal water forecast, small craft advisories for the central and south coast. Southeast winds 25 knots for the day Friday. And then east-southeast 10 to 20 knots for the north coast. Lynn Canal south at 15. Southeast 20 knots for Stevens Passage and Clarence Strait with 4-foot seas. And then for Saturday, pick up in the winds with that next front coming in here with south to southeast 25 to 30 knots for the south coast and east to south winds at 30 knots for the central coast. And east 30 to 35 knots for the north coast. And for Clarence Strait, southeast winds increasing to 25 knots, seas building to 8 feet. About the same here for Stevens Passage. Lynn Canal, southeast at 15. Prince William Sound, south winds 10 knots, variable 10 to 15 knot winds for the eastern North Gulf Coast, to south at 15 for the west side. Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, southeast winds 15 knots. And for Cook Inlet, variable winds at 10 knots with seas 1 to 2 feet. And for the day on Sunday, Cook Inlet, northeast winds 10 to 15 knots, seas 2 to 3 feet. Northeast 15 for Kamishak Bay, east at just 15 for the Barren Islands. And the North Gulf Coast here, variable winds at 10 knots. And for Prince William Sound, north winds at 10 knots. Kodiak Island, variable winds at 20 for Shelikof Strait. Otherwise on the east side there, southeast at 20. The Alaska Peninsula, variable to east winds 10 to 25 knots. And for Bristol Bay, east winds 25 knots. For Saturday, Kodiak Island, north to northeasterlies 20 to 25. And north to northeast 15 to 25 knots for the Alaska Peninsula, 6 to 10 foot seas. And east at 20 for Bristol Bay. Eastern Aleutians, southwest or variable to southwest at 10 to 15 knots. Picking up the gales there near Nikolsky, out across Adak and Atka, extending all the way out to Shemya, mostly from the west or west-southwest, or in the case of the area west of Kiska, northwest at 35 to 40 knots. And then on Saturday, southeast 15 to 20 knots there, Kiska to Shemya, northeast 20 knots on Chitka Island, and north 25 knots for Adak and Atka, and north winds at about 30 knots there for the eastern Aleutians. For the southwest coast, for Friday, northeast winds 15 to 20 knots, east 35 knots for the Pribilofs, northeast 35 knots for St. Matthew Island, 15 knot winds out of the northeast for the Yukon Delta coast, St. Lawrence Island, and Norton Sound. And northeast 15 knot winds continue for Norton Sound and the southwest or the Yukon Delta coast here, and north 15 for St. Lawrence Island, north 20 for the Kuskokwim Delta coast. North winds 25 knots for St. Matthew Island, St. Paul, and St. George. Eastern Beaufort Sea Coast, northeast at 15 to 20 knots for Friday. Central and west side here, northeast at 20 knots. Chukchi Sea, north to northeast winds 15 to 25 knots. And then for Saturday, northeast winds 15 knots for the Chukchi Sea, and north to northeast at 15 to 20 knots for the western Arctic coast. Light south breeze at 10 knots for the central coast, and 5 to 10 knot breeze there from the southwest for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast.